What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tierfon Orbital. So we have a double feature today. Is it a double feature? I'm going to be talking about two of the same hilts. These are the Jedi Killer Gen 2 from Phoenix Props. I figured instead of doing two separate videos back to back, I'm just going to go over both installs in one video. Again, they're the same hilt, same chassis. So I do want to come into Fusion, talk about the chassis, talk about my design process for this one because it was a little bit interesting for me. And then we will obviously come up top and talk a little bit about the hilts, right? So without further ado, let's come into Fusion and talk about this chassis. Okay, so here it is. I already know what you're thinking. Why is that nubbin at the top of that chassis? So on the inside of the Phoenix Props Jedi Killer Gen 2, we have a very, very awesome crystal chamber, right? The way that the switches are on the outside of this hilt, I chose to put switches on board the chassis itself rather than create some sort of like holder on the inside of the hilt itself. It took me 2 to 3 tries of getting this placement just so that everything was like lined up correctly. And my tolerances were correct, right? So we've got one regular tactile switch here and a very, very small brass hat tack that lives up here. And those are your 2 switches, right? There are some indentations in the upper part of this chassis to allow for some of the bolts that are on the underside of the crystal chamber. I really want to talk about this crystal chamber when we come up top, because this crystal chamber in this hilt is absolutely phenomenal, right? So anyhow, so here's the chassis. We do have a battery tray here. Obviously, I did do the negative spring towards the emitter in this build as well. Because of our space requirements, it was almost just underneath the lip of the upper body of the hilt. So if I put my positive battery tab up here, you almost would never be able to get that battery out without risking some sort of short, or it would just be a bigger headache. So I chose to put the negative spring up towards the emitter, right? 28mm bass speaker down here from Smugglers Outpost. I do, of course, have a 2020 Neopixel strip underneath this vent, kill switch, Proffie board. That's it. Super simple setup. I'm actually really happy with how this came out. Again, it took me a couple of tries to get all this alignment correctly and get my tolerances right. But I'm really, really happy with how it came out, right? So let's come up top. So here they are, the Jedi Killer Gen 2 from Phoenix Props, made in collaboration with Sam from Shadowfoil Props. Now, Sam, well, first of all, let's talk about the outside of both of these hilts, right? So one of these hilts was weathered by Austin over at Astoria Workshop. This hilt in particular was done by Austin, right? Really, really uniquely weathered hilt. We've got like some bronzing along all of the edges here. Really, really interesting take on the weathering on this guy. And we also have like a painted heat-stained emitter up here, right? The hilts do not ship with this external wire holders, like these little circles that hold in that wire. So I added these as well, and I also added them to the other hilt, right? Really, really nicely designed hilt. And of course, the crystal chamber. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Here is the other one. I weathered this one at the request of the customer. He wanted it very lightly weathered, lightly used. So I just went over some of the edges, right, to knock back some of that black anodization. I also added a little bit of rust into some of these grooves, added some scratches here and there, right? And that's it. Just took my own take on weathering it, right? And of course, added that external red wire. So this crystal chamber, this crystal chamber is something else. I mean, I really want to get to the level of this kind of design of parts. This to me looks like a real functional piece of a lightsaber. I mean, there's like a heat sink up here. It's just such an awesome awesome design, right? When I saw the renders of this hilt, I could not wait to get one in hand just to inspect that crystal chamber a little bit more. So as far as installation goes, this was a very, very simple installation. There was plenty of room to bring leads up past this crystal chamber. There's plenty of room to add your Neopixel accents. So for this particular one, actually, in the bottom, I've got a 5mm Neopixel accent. I get those from KR Sabers. And up top is just a regular 10mm size Neopixel. So I've got two Neopixels up on top and bottom. So, right, so we get some really nice animation and light in that crystal chamber. And that's it. So let's talk about how to use these guys. I'm going to put a battery in both, right? I learned this trick from Jeremy over at Solo Sabers. Rather than have a full length wire, right, that you're going to have to fish through all of these holes when you take the grip off, it is actually snipped right here, okay? So you just take that out of that holder and unscrew the grip. So there is one. Let's take this one off. A little bit of a tight fit past that speaker, right? So same chassis in each. I did paint a little bit of those accents on each side of the Proffie board. And here's our battery tray, 28mm base speaker down there. Let's get a pair of batteries. Okay, so again, to the customers, plural. Spring side is your negative. In these builds, spring side is towards the emitter. So take note of that. Flat part of your battery up towards the emitter. Put it in that battery tray. Let's put this one in. Hit your kill switch. Okay. Really, really nicely lit crystal chamber. I love that you can see light through this upper vent as well. Nice. Love that. So once you get your battery in, this is a little bit of a tight build, right? Make sure I've got the right grip on here. Let's get your grip past that speaker and screw in the grip until it stops. I put my wire in, and then let's put this grip on as well. Okay. There we go. All right, let's come down to the bottom and get a better look at these. All right. So there's that crystal chamber. Man, that crystal chamber looks so good. I mean, that is just so cool looking. Let's see what else we put on here. So
the NASA team is ready. Cyan.
Different animations for each font in that crystal. Lit PCB emitter. Both of these have been set up with twist to activate, twist to deactivate. On both, so the way that the switches are, this bottom switch is your main, top is your aux. Sounds great. So that's another thing I noticed about this particular version of the Jedi Killer. So the first version from Phoenix Props did not have... This one has better venting. I don't want to say that the first one didn't have good venting, but this one just, to me, this one sounds a lot better, right? And of course, this one was a lot easier for me to install, right? The first one, man, it's been so long since I've done an install on the original one, but I do vaguely remember that it was a little bit of a difficult design for the chassis, right? Given the space in the grip. But these were just, a breeze to install. It was a lot of fun doing the chassis for them, right? So let's put a blade in one. Well, we'll put a blade in both of them, right? And do a demo. Okay, so this hilt does ship with a blade plug. So I'm going to take the blade plugs out of both of these. So for So I want to talk about these blade plugs, right? So there are, oh, it does look like, yeah, so Austin did heat stain the blade plug that he weathered the hilt on, and I also heat stained the one that I weathered on. So love that about these blade plugs. They are threadable too. So I was able to take this off of this acrylic base and heat stain it, right? I want to make sure I get the right one with the right hilt, right? So 1-inch blade holder. Rested on those PCB pins, there is a set screw in between these two vents here. Tighten that, and you're ready to go. Such a great hilt. I know. I say that about every hilt. I know I do.
I'm Luke Skywalker.
Great hilt. Let's put a blade in the other one, right? Same 1-inch blade holder, same set screw, same config.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
One more. I love that crystal chamber. It's such a cool chamber. All right, it's enough. It's enough of that. So, great hilt. Great hilt from Phoenix Props and Shadowfoil. Again, this crystal chamber, I can't say enough about it. That crystal chamber is really, really rad. I think Sam really knocked it out of the park. And the design of the hilt itself is a great design, right? So Phoenix Props, kudos to them as well, right? So anyhow, to both of the clients, thank you for trusting me with your installs. If anyone has any questions about this particular chassis or the install, please do not be a stranger. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Have a good one, everybody.